Washington, D.C., and actually beginning travel to Washington, D.C. The allegations in this indictment, we allege, show that these men were not simply airing grievances from behind their keyboards and sharing like-minded political ideologies.
Now on Brooklyn News Live, an alleged terror plot folded at the White House on America's 250th birthday. We have what you need to know. Plus, right now in Brooklyn, the stormy weather from this morning is past us, but the chance of scattered storms continues into the evening. The rainy weather that is still going on. Plus, we will take you into a press conference from earlier today from the National Action Network after a body of Nolan Wells was found. We're going to take you into all of that drama and the controversy that is now surrounding it. It's all coming up right here on Brooklyn News Live.
It's time for all the news you need and more. Brooklyn News Live starts right now.
And welcome to Brooklyn News Live on what is a busy Friday. It is July 10th, 2026. I'm Jackson Mitchell. It is good to be with you. We have a lot of headlines to get to, including the terror plot that we just got an updated press conference. So do you remember the Freedom 250, the massive UFC fight that happened on the White House lawn? Well, this goes back to then when allegedly in this new indictment released today, there were questions about a possible plot to attack the White House using drones. I wanted to take you into this press conference from earlier today where officials spoke on this plot. Let's take you there now. This is, again, a developing story we're following. Take a listen.
Commit murder on federal government territory and to murder a federal government official, including the President of the United States, the Vice President of the United States, and members of Congress. That second count is punishable by up to a lifetime of imprisonment. The indictment details several overt acts allegedly committed by the defendants in May and June of this year, including acquiring and maintaining firearms, ammunition and body armor, meeting to train in marksmanship and combat tactics, meeting to provide firearms and other gear to each other, purchasing a 3D printer to make drones, making plans to travel together to Washington, D.C., and actually beginning travel to Washington, D.C. The allegations in this indictment, we allege, show that these men were not simply airing grievances from behind their keyboards and sharing like-minded political ideologies. Rather, they took action to carry out a plot to attack the UFC Freedom 250 event and to murder federal officials at the highest levels of our government. Political discourse has many places in our society. Political violence has none. Because of the diligent, around-the-clock work of our AUSAs, our law enforcement partners, our sister U.S. attorneys' offices around the country, and the National Security Division, these 8 men are now in custody, and this threat to our government and to the public has been successfully neutralized. But our work is not finished. My office, along with our great law enforcement partners, will continue to do everything in our power to protect our fellow citizens from threats to their safety and to hold accountable those who would commit violence against our nation and its leaders. So I'm now going to turn things over to Special Agent in Charge Jason Cromartie from the FBI.
As mentioned, the group was making plans and taking steps to conduct an attack on our nation's capital. However, every day, the FBI takes steps to identify and to protect people from those threats. Good morning. My name is Jason Cromartie. I'm the Special Agent in Charge for FBI Cincinnati, which covers the southern and central portions of Ohio. The mission of the FBI's Joint Terrorism Task Force is to detect and disrupt terror plots that target Americans with an emphasis on preventing incidents before they occur. I'm honored to be here today with our partners to announce these indictments related to the threats against the Freedom 250 Ultimate Fighting Championship, or UFC, the event that was to be held at the White House last month. This is a classic example of see something, say something, saving lives, and how the law enforcement partnership comes together to keep our communities safe. The FBI is grateful for these partnerships that have helped prevent a tragedy. From the initial 911 call, our law enforcement colleagues with the Danville Police Department and the Knox County Sheriff's Office recognized a potential threat. Their deputies and patrol officers did a tremendous job at evaluating the situation, taking immediate action, and exposing this terrorist threat, and then contacting the FBI. When the FBI began to investigate Tyson Proper, we quickly learned of the alleged plot involved multiple people across the country coordinating and planning a violent attack. The FBI notified the Secret Service, who are great partners in our efforts to protect the U.S. homeland. Command post coordinated interviews, intelligence analysis, and execution of search warrants around the country quickly identified additional participants and evidence of this conspiracy. This resulted in additional subjects being arrested by the FBI over a matter of days in several states, as mentioned, in Missouri, Nebraska, and California. Through this investigation, we learned the group allegedly planned to carry out a mass casualty attack involving the use of drones, armed with explosives, and firearms meant to shoot people fleeing in the crowds. Our command posts also included membership of the Secret Service and other partners to share information in real time and to help ensure no violence occurred at the White House UFC event or any other high-profile events. Again, the FBI would like to thank our local partners at the Knox County Sheriff's Office, the Danville Police Department, and particularly members of the Columbus Division of Police, who were an integral part of this investigation. I must commend the special agents, the task force officers, the intelligence analysts, and the other team members of the Joint Terrorism Task Force and the many other law enforcement agencies and officers around the country for their work on this case. They continue their commitment to keeping people safe and working together to protect our nation, especially the work by the United States Attorney's Office and the Southern District of Ohio, who helped us put together this case. Together, we worked long hours, ceaselessly over several weeks to investigate, make fast work of uncovering connections, and disrupting this plot. I also want to thank FBI leadership and the various supporting divisions of FBI headquarters and the many FBI field offices coast to coast who are directly involved in this investigation. They've all committed significant amount of resource to ensure this conspiracy was aggressively and thoroughly investigated. Finally, the FBI wants to remind the public how important it is to speak up when they are concerned about something and they observe something that they observe this isn't right. Again, we've all heard this saying, see something, say something. This was an excellent case of someone who was concerned by what they were seeing and contacted law enforcement before violence could occur. I encourage the public, if something does not seem right, please alert the authorities. You can always call the FBI at 1-800-CALL-FBI, or in an emergency, please call 911. It is our partnerships with law enforcement and with the public together that strengthen our safety nationwide. Thank you. I'll now turn it over to the U.S. Secret Service, Jason Reese.
Thanks, Jason. And good morning. My name's Jason Reese. I'm the special agent in charge of the U.S. Secret Service in Cincinnati. I'd like to begin by thanking the U.S. Attorney's Office, the U.S. Attorney and his staff, our federal and local partners at the FBI and the Joint Terrorism Task Force, and the special agents and the technical investigators who got us to this point. There is no mission of greater importance to the Secret Service than the protection of our nation's leaders. And the work put into this investigation makes that point crystal clear. When the information came in, it was a great example of how layers of law enforcement can work efficiently together. Once we had the information that we needed, the Secret Service and federal and local partners were able to identify and lawfully interrupt a communication network that gave us a roadmap to a sinister plot targeting the White House complex. Our agents and support staff are always on alert. In this case, they worked around the clock and in a short window of time in order to mitigate and interdict this threat. I'm truly grateful for their tenacity, From here, the investigation and findings will be presented in court. We'll protect the integrity of that process, and any further comments will be made through official court filings. Lastly, I want to make very clear to the public that nobody is more aware of the threats that lurk outside of our doors than the Secret Service. Rest assured that this agency's vigilance and dedication to duty will continue to keep our nation's leaders and institutions safe. I'd like to introduce to you the Deputy Chief from the Columbus Division of Police, Deputy Chief Sagal. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Rob Segal. I'm a Deputy Chief over Special Operations Subdivision of the Columbus Division of Police. On behalf of Chief Elaine Bryant, I wanted to thank all of our federal, state, and local partners for their efforts and collaboration on this case. Ohio Homeland Security protects the public by analyzing threats, sharing intelligence, safeguarding critical infrastructure, and coordinating emergency preparedness and response. Region 4, which includes much of central Ohio, including Knox County, works together to safeguard the largest city in Ohio and anything in the region which could impact Columbus. As the largest department in the state, the Columbus Division of Police has dedicated resources to the our Homeland Security Section Counterterrorism Unit and assigned them to the statewide Terrorism Analysis and Crime Center, which is the Ohio's Fusion Center. The Fusion Center network allows us to quickly address rapidly evolving situations and threats to our city, state, and throughout the nation. We also dedicate many resources to the local FBI Joint Terrorism Task Force, and we're proud of that partnership. These efforts cannot be accomplished alone. They are successful because of the partnerships, but not just because of the partnerships with law enforcement. It's the partnerships with the communities we serve. We would like to thank everyone involved in this case who saw something, said something, and took action. This is how we work together to ensure our communities thrive and our residents feel safe showing up to large events. Thank you.
Okay, we can now take some questions.
Alrighty, we will dig back into the question and answer portion of all of this coming up in just a moment. The announcement there that 8 people were indicted in this case. We will continue to follow it live for you all right here on Brooklyn News Live. Alrighty, still to come right here on Brooklyn News Live, we've got some breaking news just in from President Trump. The announcement he just made about the future of Iran and the ceasefire talks there. Plus, assassinating President Trump, what the Washington Journal is now reporting, Israel told the president about Iran's plans. When we come back, you're watching Brooklyn News Live. Alrighty, welcome back here live in Brooklyn News Live. We are following some breaking news this hour. This breaking news coming from the White House, where just moments ago, the president on Truth Social confirming that the Iran ceasefire is over, but saying that talks will still occur. In a Truth Social post, the president saying, quote, "The Islamic Republic of Iran has asked to continue, quote, talks. We have agreed to do so, but the United States has stated to them in no uncertain terms that the ceasefire is over." Thank you for your attention to this matter. President Donald J. Trump, again, this was just a moment ago from the president's Truth Social that we're following right now from the White House, where he said this. We are also getting new reporting today. This is coming into us as well from the Washington Journal, who says, well, that Iran planned new Trump assassination attempt and that Israel was the one who warned the United States. Of course, this goes back to some drama that I don't believe we've brought to you here on Brooklyn News Live, but it is something to talk about here because about a week ago or a few days ago, when the president was traveling back from Turkey back to the United States, we learned that that the president would be taking the original Air Force One. If you remember, there was an Air Force One that was gifted by Qatar that the president has been flying recently. It was expedited to get, fitted up to Air Force standards. Then it was in Turkey. Then the White House said because it was going to travel to other other bases, essentially other military bases in Europe, they were going to take the old Air Force One back, and the new Air Force One was going to go to these bases so that the military personnel on those bases could see the plane. And so that reporting was, of course, questioned. It was, is that the real reason, or is there a security concern? And now we're learning some more about a possible security concern. Of course, the president mentioned several times while in Turkey that Iran had plans or was that Trump was Iran's #1 target. The president mentioning that several times while in Turkey. So just something notable here that we're now learning from the Washington Journal. Also notable that Iran, I should say Israel, is the one who told President Trump, or the one who told and warned the United States about Iran's plan. So we're following it. We're going to keep our eyes on this all. Of course, the president was in Turkey, which is close to Iran. It is in the Middle East. So again, big news there made by the president just moments ago that while the ceasefire is over, he has agreed to continue talks. We do want to take you back to the press conference we were just watching moments ago, where they just began to take questions. Let's listen back in.
I'm not aware of him being on anybody's radar before this concerned family member made the call to the sheriff's office.
Would this have been the first time that these 8 ever met each other, and have any of them ever met each other at this point?
We have some information, and I'm going to try to stick to what's been filed in these various complaints that have been filed in the indictments. But there's some information in those indictments about meetings that occurred. In particular, there's a meeting, I think it was on June 13th, between one of the subjects in Nebraska, Alvarez, and a Missouri-based subject. I think it was Mr. Rinker. So they did meet up, and certainly we have information in our complaints and in the indictment talking about how there were plans to meet up, plans for Mr. Proper to drive to West Virginia to meet up with another individual, Mr. Skaggs, in West Virginia, and one of the subjects out, or the defendants out in California, Mr. Roa, having gotten in a car, planning to drive to pick up other members of the conspiracy. But a lot of the communication, obviously, is laid out in the complaint and the indictments was online through messaging apps and things of that sort.
How common are plots like this, and are they becoming more common with the prevalence of internet chat groups?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say how common plots are. I mean, there's, I think the internet chat groups, these encrypted applications that people use to message each other, make it more and more frequent, and they sort of embolden people to come up with plans and do these plans because they think they're not going to be detected, right? Hey, this is an encrypted app, I'm going to use that. The one, I think, really remarkable thing about what we're able to do, and at the federal levels, we do have these conspiracy charges and attempt charges and things of that nature. So when we get into an investigation like that, these are charges that don't require the completion of these underlying crimes. And so when we can get onto a messaging application and uncover some communications that reveal a potential plot, we have these tools federally to be able to charge individuals. We don't have to make them go all the way before we can hold them accountable and mitigate the threat.
Can you speak more to just the timeline? I mean, 4 days before the event doesn't seem like a ton of time. I guess from my perspective, somebody doesn't do this.
Yeah, I mean, I think as laid out in our charging instruments, we've got communications that kind of started, at least with respect to this type of plot, in May. So a good month before the events. Things started to seem to have crystallized sometime in the beginning of June in terms of focusing in on the UFC Freedom 250 event. And certainly when you look at the communications, there were plans to do something at that event. Drones, explosives, there was firearms amassed, ammunition amassed, body armor, plans to travel, right? So, it might seem like a condensed timeline, but the intent from the communications that we've revealed in our complaints and in our indictments show that these folks were planning to act within that time frame.
Is the conspiracy larger than it was first believed?
It's like peeling back the layers of an onion sometimes on some of this stuff, right? So you have these chat rooms, you have certain participants in the chat rooms, and you're just trying to figure out who it is, who these folks are. And so you have a bunch of monikers being used, and you don't even know if it's one person using the same moniker or multiple monikers and that sort of thing. So I think at the beginning of the investigation, it wasn't clear how large it was going to turn out to be. And there were a number of folks involved in these chat rooms. There was a number of different chat groups that were compartmentalized, and then different levels of participation in those chat groups, right? So you had some people that maybe were lurking a little bit more and not really participating, some people that were fully participating, and then sort of anywhere in between in that spectrum. So it wasn't clear how big it was going to turn out to be. We've charged these 8 folks right now, but the investigation is going to continue until I think we feel, and the FBI feels, and the Secret Service and our law enforcement partners feel that we've charged everybody that we think needs to be charged in relation to this plot.
Do you anticipate more charges or more people charged?
I'm not going to say one way or the other. I'll just say the investigation is continuing at this point. I'm not going to tell you what I'm anticipating or not at this point.
Is there any indication who really started this of these 8 people? There's been various, through the complaints, this person had this kind of leadership role or this kind of leadership role. Was there one point person that was really the spearhead of this?
Well, I think, we've charged our first named indictment, or first person named in the indictment is Alvarez. I think he's viewed, the shepherd is viewed as sort of a leader in this plot. That's the thing about conspiracies, and that's why conspiracies have been made, criminal conspiracies have been made illegal, right? Is once you get a bunch of people together and they start planning, you never know where the things go, right? And that leads back into the point about social media. That's only, and not social media, but social messaging apps and encrypted apps, is that's only sort of amplified this. Why do we criminalize criminal conspiracies? Is because when you get a group of people planning to do illegal acts, that's viewed as just as serious as actually completing that illegal act, right? So I think when you look at these chats, you see a lot of involvement from a lot of people, and maybe it's different levels, and you might be able to characterize one person as more of a leader, and this person was in charge of looking at drones and things of that nature. But the folks that we've charged, we believe, were all conspirators. They agreed to commit an illegal act, and they were taking overt acts in furtherance of that conspiracy.
And how would you describe how likely they would have been to achieve this?
I would say it was achieve. It depends on what you mean by achieve it, but at the end of the day, I think we have evidence, and we've laid it out in the complaints and in the indictment, that these folks had amassed ammunition, had amassed weapons, were looking at 3D printers for drones, and had travel plans to go to D.C. So, what would have happened or could have happened, that's never going to be clear, because thank God there was an intervention here, and this thing was disrupted. But in my view, when I look at what's been alleged there, it seems pretty likely that someone or multiple people were driving to Washington, D.C. to do something.
Can you talk about the concern for homegrown terrorists or extremists trying to carry out this kind of violence?
Yeah, there's always a concern for homegrown. We see that quite a bit. I think, I don't know if Jason wants to talk about this, but in my work in the past as a prosecutor with the JTTF, homegrown. We're just as concerned with homegrown as we are with an attack coming from someone overseas, obviously, right? And again, going back to the social media and the social messaging part of this and chat rooms, and that seems to be an incubator for a lot of these ideas. People get in an echo chamber. They get together with like-minded individuals, and then they start concocting things. So we're always concerned with that. That's a major domestic terrorism, international terrorism, all sorts of terrorism we're focused on, but we're always concerned about homegrown extremists.
What does it say about the determination of these folks when, after they lost touch, according to what's in the complaint, after they lost touch with Mr. Proper, he was trying to find another way to get to DC.
Right.
What does that say to you about how determined they were to execute this plan?
Yeah, I think it says a lot about that. I mean, I think it goes back to my point is this wasn't a pie in the sky type of thing. This isn't just people talking on messaging apps. These are people that were determined. Again, we had Mr. Roa get into a car in California to drive, and his car broke down, but he was on his way. Skaggs, to your point, when Proper kind of dropped off because the cops had been called, and he reported that, the Skaggs was asking about who else is going to come to pick me up so we can get out to DC. So it goes back to the point of how likely was this? I think all those points lead to that conclusion.
You mentioned workers who weren't necessarily a part of anything and didn't participate, but were still there. Are you keeping eyes on those people?
I'll say this. I think the FBI, Secret Service, all our partners are doing a comprehensive investigation. And so I think it would be obviously irresponsible of us as federal law enforcement to not look at every single person that was potentially involved here or in these chat rooms or chat groups.
With respect to the 8 individuals, what comes next for them and where are they being held?
Yeah, so we have 2 folks that are being held here in this district right now. We have everybody's detained, and so the other 6 are detained, but they're detained in other districts. 2 of those 6 are detained on our charges here. The other 4 were detained on complaints that were filed in those districts, and we expect them to appear on our indictment, and then eventually to be transported here to the Southern District of Ohio to appear and to face these charges. Thank you.
Alrighty, there, a press conference from earlier today there being played. So let's take you back out here to live in Brooklyn as we are continuing to follow the major headlines. While we were watching that press conference, I was just doing the math. I know this is off topic from what the press conference was about, but I was just doing the math, and I've done 17 hours of news this week. So it has been a lot. We've been on the air for a long time. We've been on the air 5-6 hours a day, it feels like. And here we are about to wrap up today's edition of Brooklyn News Live. We do want to take you to this story that we are following right now. Of course, the trial of Charlie Kirk, a look into, I should say, the preliminary hearings for the accused assassin of Charlie Kirk, Tyler Robinson. A look at the court from earlier today there. The judge has said, Judge Tony Graff, saying that he will wait to decide on whether this case will go to trial and that oral arguments will continue into September 1st. So they have wrapped up for the 5 days of hearings today. They will continue on September 1st at, again, 10 a.m. Central Time. That is when he is expected to make that decision. Now, a DNA forensic analysis appeared for the defense witness today at the ATF, Caitlin Oliver, as the defendants tried to point to specific inconsistencies in the how they obtained DNA evidence from the home of Robinson. Of course, we also know that his ex-lover and his roommate, Lance Twiggs, also lived there. with him at the time of the shooting. So again, that is the information that we're getting today out of today's big takeaways from the hearing. Also, there was a ruling that the judge said that no exhibits can be shown on camera. Now, he said he would, there would likely be more arguments on September 1st about this, but that was only going to go for today's hearing that happened after about 3.5 seconds of a prohibited exhibit were shown yesterday evening onto the broadcast camera. So again, that is why he made that ruling. There were several arguments, and then the defense would renew their motions to remove cameras out of the courtroom. The judge would deny that and saying they kind of side with the prosecution in a way, but that no exhibits could be shown, later clarifying that audio could be shown the entire time. So while an exhibit was playing, the camera couldn't point towards the exhibit, but the audio could continue playing. So that was a ruling today made by the judge in what was a lengthy morning argument about media in the courtroom. So we will continue to follow this again on September 1st at 10 a.m. is when that is expected. That next hearing is expected to get underway in the preliminary hearing. So will continue following the decision. Whether this case goes to trial, that's a good question. We'll continue following it. We are going to sneak in a commercial break right here on Brookland News Live. We do have a lot more to come. We're going to take you into the case of Nolan Wells coming up next, into his strange death and the family that is, well, now looking for reasons behind all of that. That is coming up here in just a moment, live on Brookland News Live. Alrighty, I want to take you to a developing story that we are following. This story is a pretty big one that we've been hearing about these last few days, and that is into the death of Nolan Wells. You see him there on your screen. We kind of just want to give you a breakdown of what we know, kind of just to bring this on to perspective. We know this was on the 4th of July when this incident occurred. Nolan Xavier Wells, he's 18, of Ocean Springs, Mississippi. He went missing July 4th after a boat trip with friends to Horn Island, a barrier island, which is about 6 miles off of Jackson County, off of the Jackson County coast. Now, he was a former Ocean Springs High School football standout who gone out to play wide receiver at Southwest Mississippi Community College. We would later learn, after he went missing on the 4th, that his body would be recovered on July 6th in the marsh at the island's northwest tip. So the timeline here of the day, this is what we know. This is what officials have told us. He was last seen around 3 to 4 p.m. on Saturday, and according to a statement from Jackson County Chancery Judge Ashley Cole, whose stepson was also on this trip, the boat that brought the group left around 4:30 p.m. It was taking on water. Now, Sheriff John Ledbetter says Wells, quote, chose to stay on the island rather than leave with the group, planning to catch a ride back later. One of the friends contacted the Coast Guard around 11 p.m. Separately, Wells's mother contacted the sheriff's office around midnight. A park ranger would then find his body on Monday. Now, the controversy behind this all, because photos from the boat show Wells appears to be the only black person in the friend group, which has fueled intense social media speculation and framed the case as a flashpoint on race. Now, Attorney Ben Crump, who is a big civil rights guy, the prominent, he's now representing the family here, and he says investigators keep telling them that there's no evidence of foul play. Quote, even though you have students who recorded an altercation while they were on the boats. That's the other part here, because there was video revealing that there was some type of altercation between the children on this boat. So the family, at this point in time, they don't accept this as an accidental drowning, and Crump says Wells' father describes him as an, quote, elite athlete who could swim. We want to just take you to this press conference from earlier today and allow you to draw your own conclusions here. This is from earlier today with National Action Network Chair Rev Sharpton, speaking. Take a listen.
To my right are the parents of Nolan Wells, and we'll hear from them, and of course, Attorney of Black America, Ben Crump, and Attorney Park, you'll hear from. I want to let me say at the outset that when I received the word of what happened to Nolan and began hearing what was pieced together, it is clear that this situation must have the most thorough and objective investigation to lead to justice. What we've been told does not make sense. And being that there is lack of confidence in the local authorities, who have already, in my judgment, seemed to have mishandled where it was going. Because to just immediately, before a week time, saying there was nothing done wrong, when we hear that this young man was engaged in some kind of argument that was on tape, that his cell phone and keys ended up with one of the people that were there on the island and got away. He was one black with 3 young white men who happened to end up with his phone, happened to end up with his keys. Then there's just too many questions that they should not be closing the investigation. Now, I'm from Brooklyn, so I'm a little different than some of y'all. I was built different. My nose is out here, my eyes are here, my brain is here, which means some things I can smell before I could see and before I can figure out. This does not smell right. So some people are saying, Reverend, are y'all bringing in race? Well, we're not bringing in race, but we're not discounting race either, because we don't know what it is. So to tell us don't rush to judgment saying it was racist is fine. But then I'm telling you, don't rush to judgment saying it was not racism, because we do not know. We do know what these parents are being told, and what the parents have now shared with us does not make sense. How do you end up a young, promising football player, not in trouble, mother and daddy at home, everything we tell him to do and be? They go on the 4th of July, on the anniversary of this country, going to an island, we're outing with his friends, and the friends come back, and he's left there with some story about he said leave them behind, But then by some magic, one of the friends has his keys and his phone. Mind you, his mother tracked down the phone. They didn't voluntarily tell her they had his phone. They didn't voluntarily say they had the keys. So if they had not been tracked down, we don't know if they ever would have known where it was. Some of this doesn't make sense. So we are absolutely in National Action Network and other groups going to rally behind this family. I have told them that whatever we can and need to do, we will do it because this smacks of some of the worst fears that we've had historically, not only in Mississippi, but in this country. And we are there until the end with them. I've been asked by the family to be in Mississippi for the funeral to officiate, which I'm going to do. We just got off the phone with Tyler Perry, the actor who says he wants to help cover whatever expenses for the funeral. We have with us Spike Lee is in the house. Many of our people that have always supported families are there. This is not about them trying to raise money. We're going to take care of that. This is about, though, they got to keep going forward. But we want justice. And let the chips fall where they may. If it ends up being one way that we suspect was wrong, fine. But if it's another way, don't back up and play games with this. They are not activists or lawyers. So they only want justice for their son. I'm an activist. When we get there and they say we heating things up, that's what we do. Because sometimes you got to make people sweat to get the poison out their system. I'm the sweat man, and they are the parents that want to see justice for their son. Let me let you hear from Christine and Elmer Wansley, and then Attorney Crump. Let them. Oh, okay, Attorney Crump, and then we'll hear from the parent.
Okay. Thanks, Rev. Y'all can come on up with Rev and us. We can all be together. Thank you, Reverend Al, for always answering the bell, as you have done on so many occasions when families get the worst news of their life. And make no mistake about it, Christine and Elmo got the worst news of their life on what was supposed to be a joyous occasion where everybody was celebrating the 4th of July weekend. I'm Attorney Ben Crumpet, along with Attorney Lisa Park and Jared Presson and Camila Moore. We have the honor and the privilege of helping to lead an independent investigation on behalf of the family of Nolan Wells. Why do you say we need to be retained to lead an independent investigation? It is because the family has distrust of the Mississippi law enforcement officials giving them a fair investigation where their black son ended up dead after going out on a boat with 3 young white men. The history of Mississippi is something that they don't just read about in books, but it's a lived experience for many black Americans that oftentimes when our children are killed in highly questionable situations, that there is this notion that, oh, it was nothing wrong, no foul play, let's just sweep it under the rug. Well, we refuse to sweep it under the rug. We refuse to just let Nolan Wells' death be in vain. We are going to make sure that we get to the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, because Nolan deserves it. You're going to hear his mother and father talk about what a wonderful young man he was. I mean, doing everything right. Reverend Al, he was not only a college student, he was a great athlete. He was a model big brother for his brothers and little brothers and sisters, and he was a great son who was on the cusp of becoming a man. I mean, Christina Elmore did everything to prepare him for this moment. He was so close. He was right there. You're going to hear his father talk about him had a good football season last year, but this season he was really ready to go to the next level, to go to Division I. I mean, the highlights that you're seeing on social media of his athletic prowess, I mean, it is all relevant, because when you start talking about drowning, I mean, this is a kid who knew how to swim. This is a kid who was in tip-top shape. He was a superior athlete. And so I'm going to get to that in a moment, these glaring contradictions, but to try to say, oh, we're suggesting it was just an accident or drowning, go ahead and move on. Well, they are not accepting it. They are not accepting it. They want to know that you have not taken the path of least resistance, that you have done a full, complete, thorough, impartial investigation, because it cannot be lost on anybody, but especially us in the black community. If the roles were reversed and you had 3 young black men on a boat with a young white man, and that young white man ended up dead, what kind of investigation would be being conducted by the Mississippi law enforcement officials? How many times would those 3 young black men be interrogated? So all we're asking is the same consideration you would have given if the roles were reversed. Give that consideration to this family as well. That is our fight. The glaring contradictions just jump out at you. The fact that he is there with his friends, and you look at all the videos, it seems to be he's the only black on the island, or maybe one other, but not many. And so, Jared, you have where a young woman he was talking to says that, well, Nolan said he was going back to get on the boat with the boys. The boys say that Nolan told them he was going to stay and talk to the young woman.
Alrighty, we hate to interrupt this press conference, but we do prioritize live feeds, and we do have a live feed coming into us right now from outside the courtroom in Provo, Utah. We want to take that to you right now, as it appears we are getting reaction from lawyers. Let's listen in.
And I suspect, by the way, that there are probably ways to zoom in even with more fidelity on that tape, and that's why I think that all of this should be released, so that the public has a chance to see, and the world has a chance to see, and anybody has a chance to see, let alone obviously the family that has the ultimate right to see what happened to Charlie.
You were in there the whole week. What did you take away high level from 5 days of testimony and all the evidence presented against Tyler Robinson?
Oh, look, you know, we had heard about the evidence beforehand, but now we have the evidence, and the world has the evidence, and eventually a jury will have the evidence. That's our system, and we want there to be a fair trial. I want there to be a fair trial. I think that our country deserves there to be a fair trial, in the same way that I think that our country deserves to have the First Amendment, the same way I believe that the media and the public have access, because that's the First Amendment. That's what Charlie stood for. Charlie stood for fairness in the American system, and part of that, of course, is the criminal justice system. And that's why I think it's part of Charlie's legacy to make sure that we all have a fair system here. But that being said, when you have the evidence that has come out here today, and the evidence that, I mean, they tell us that there's more to come at trial, that I pray the jury sees that, and gives it a fair weight, it's an avalanche. Yesterday specifically, and then today with this video that we at least got to see, it seems to me like an absolute avalanche of evidence.
Just as a human watching Charlie's widow Erica and his mother Catherine and Robert, I mean, it broke them watching that video today. When you look at the trial, not speaking for them, but just speaking for yourself, would you like this to go through trial? Because there's going to be a lot more difficult evidence. There's going to be crime scene photos, stuff from the coroner's office. It's going to be very emotional. Or would you prefer that this ends in a plea deal where the family and friends don't have to deal with all of that evidence?
Well, look, I'm not going to speak for the family in terms of that. That's obviously their prerogative. But from my perspective, I don't want any deals. Charlie didn't get a deal. Charlie didn't even get a say as to whether or not it was public. It was all public. The whole world to see. That was the intent. The intent was that he waited for Charlie to be on camera. He waited for Charlie to be on live stream. He waited for Charlie to be asking questions, for the crowd to be assembled. He didn't go to Charlie's hotel or when he was driving around or something. He waited for that moment for a specific reason. And so that's why I think it should all be public.
Sorry to interrupt, but those of us who saw it and witnessed it, like myself, and heard the bullet whiz past my head, now we have to live with that, right?
No, everyone in that crowd was victimized, like yourself, and thank you for being here, because you are a victim too, and the children who were in that crowd, and we saw some of the videos of that as well, and the people who saw it around the world are all victims. And so when I say no deals, I want this to be heard in court. And no, it's not going to be easy. None of this is easy. I don't like any second of this, but it has to be done for Charlie.
Jack, to your point earlier, I mean, Erica Kirk very clearly wants everything to be transparent, at least in the preliminary hearing. You were there for 5 days. On your own show, you talked about transparency. Are you disappointed? Do you feel like they showed enough, the critical pieces of evidence?
There's a frustration, for sure, that specifically the video today was not shown. I would like to see as well the rest of the Twigs, recorded interview. The one attorney said at one point, he said, "You guys have all the evidence already," but that's just not true. I've never seen that. Erica's never seen that. They've never seen those things. They've never seen that video of the enhancement until that moment. So what you were saying earlier about their reaction, that was the first reaction.
Already a friend
time
of Charlie Kirk speaking there outside the courtroom after the Tyler Robinson preliminary hearing wrapped up. Expected to pick back up again on September 1st. We do want to take you back to the live, the feed from earlier today, I should say, that we were listening to before the break that was out of New York City. Let me get that back ready for you guys, and we will go back and begin listening again. Again, the family of Nolan Wells speaking out in this press conference. We do want to listen in. What I'm going to do here is skip forward just a little bit in this video to where we hear the family speaking out. Give me one moment, you guys. We're going to hear the family speak out here, and I do want to listen to, this is the father of Nolan Wells here. Let's take a listen.
Who was with us? I know we saw him. It just does not make sense. Make it make sense.
Just one last thing. We want her to talk about the cell phone deleted messages. I'm sorry. I thought my voice was loud enough. One last thing, we want to have Christine talk about the cell phone from her perspective before they tell you who Nolan was, and then we'll take your questions.
So when we made it home, my sister and I actually went through Nolan's cell phone, particularly Snapchat, because that is so popular with the children. And when we opened it up, there was nothing. There were no saved pictures. There were no snaps from that day. And we did open it before the 24-hour expiration. So we found that very concerning, only because anyone who's ever been around Nolan will tell you at social gatherings, he's taking videos, he's taking pictures, he's even come up to me when I'm getting ready to go to bed, "Hey Ma, come on, take a picture of me." You know, like that was Nolan. So that's why we feel that things may have been deleted, was because of the fact that there was nothing in either one of his accounts. But I do want to say this. I would hope that any parent who, God forbid, would be in our situation, I would hope that you would do the same thing. I would hope that you would ask for any help, receive any help to get answers, because at the end of the day, that's all we want. We just want to know. We just want to know what happened and why our baby didn't come home. Like that's our biggest thing. And we are so grateful to everyone, family, friends, classmates, United Cajun Navy, everybody that's assisted us. We appreciate you. There's not enough thank yous that we could say or give to you, but I just, you know,
we just want to know the key words there in all of this, from the mother and father of Nolan Wells speaking out at that press conference today. So key to all of this, the information she points to, saying when she opened his phone, he uses Snapchat a lot. When she opened Snapchat, there was nothing there, and you see the emotions. Poor Yahya, again, just can't imagine being put in a situation quite like that. Alrighty, right now in Brooklyn, a live look outside there at the R-Dot camera. As we wrap up this hour, sunny skies continue, but the chance of scattered showers aren't going anywhere. Let's get you to your forecast right this moment here tonight. Scattered showers could continue, a low of 75 degrees as we go into Saturday. Scattered showers as you expect, high of 91, low of 73, and by Sunday, high of 88, low of 72. Scattered showers once again. We're low on time, so that means we are going to wrap up our coverage right here on Brooklyn News Live. I want to thank you all for joining us throughout the last hour. We tried to get to all of the big stories. Again, that press conference about Nolan Wells was nearly an hour long, and it's interesting to see how this investigation is going to go forward. That concludes this edition of Brooklyn News Live. Remember, you can join us each and every weekday at 2 p.m. We're back here on Monday with the big stories and the big headlines. Thank you for watching. That concludes this Friday edition of Brooklyn News Live. We're back on Monday.